All right, guys, it's been a minute. It's been a few years actually, but we finally got the students together, and we're going to continue with the lesson series. I believe it's season 3 and episode 24. We're going to be resuming working on the loggers. I think the loggers was the last thing that was left from the previous lessons. So we're going to get back into this, and let's get right into it. So, yeah, here we go. Okay, so we're starting with the loggers.js. So go ahead and go back, go to there first. You got your file operations, you got your timers, and loggers. And there was quite a bit of code that we left out that we didn't get implemented in here, obviously, because we left this console.log empty. So let's get into what we need to do here. So first of all, yeah, we got our header. That's good. This class path message. Function name is defined if object keys, and this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. Okay, so we're going to say let console log enabled equals configurator dot get configuration setting. That's implemented already. Yep. We're going to pass it the string system and console log enabled, okay, because we're checking. Oops, I need to make that a string, so let's not forget about that. Okay, and semicolon at the end. If console log enabled equals true. Okay, and I believe, yes, see, I do this. I think we talked about this before. I wanted to always put end comments here. And if object dot keys d dot length, oops, oh yeah, that's right, dot length is not equal to 0. We want to make sure that we got some data in our d data structure. That's that if condition is doing. And if console log enabled equals true. Okay, so I'm basically making these comments here sort of like an end statement. They're not required, but I prefer to do them, especially if we're going to have a lot of stuff in there, so that way I can connect. I mean, you can clearly see that this matches with that, and you can highlight this and it highlights that and matches with this one, so you can see that visually, but this adds an extra layer that tells me that that connects with that. So I do like to put those things in there. All right, so now that we've got this console log enabled block, let's go ahead and add some console logs here for manually debugging, which we're going to comment them out, but I'm going to put them in here for now. So console.log, and these are hard-coded console logs. Begin $ curly brace, namespace prefix, okay, and oops, you know what? This should be backtick, not single quote. Okay, now that'll work. Curly brace, namespace prefix, and curly brace, $ curly brace, function name, okay. And inside here, space function. Okay, there we go. And we're going to do another one, console.log, backtick, class path is $ curly brace, class path. Okay, and one more, console.log, backtick message is $ curly brace message. Okay, so those are going to help with manually debugging this console log system, because the console log system is going to be used to help us debug some stuff. debug the application or whatever code it is that we're building. Or if you build an application with this framework, then it'll help you to debug that application. So these console logs are very important. And you'll see we're going to build on layers on top of layers on top of layers of this system to the point where we can automate we can automate the debugging process. It's very powerful. You're going to love it. It's amazing. But we have to have the basic infrastructure in place first before we can start to build on additional layers on top of that system. So let's continue here. Let log file equal configurator.get configuration setting system. Okay, application cleaned root path. Okay, we got to make sure we have a root path and that we get a log file listed there. If log file is not equal to undefined. Okay, and we don't need to put an end if here. That's fine. It's just a small block of code for this section. Log file equals backtick $ curly brace log file and then 2 / logs. Okay, so it's going to show up in that folder. We're just adding that on top of that, and console.log backtick log file before path dot resolve is $ curly brace log file. Okay, we're just debugging that to print it out, and then log file equals path dot resolve, so that on the local system it will resolve the path for that log file to make sure that it's a legit log path, like we can actually save it and the folders exist and all of that stuff. Console.log backtick log file after path.resolve is curly brace $ curly brace log file. Okay, we do that because the path.resolve, because this path might be a Windows path, but we might be running this on Linux. So it needs to resolve this path to whatever it's going to show up on Linux. Or it could be Mac. You know, you get the idea. It's going to resolve that path, whatever that path is supposed to. It's going to try its best to resolve it to the local system, whatever is running. Okay, log file equals log file plus / plus configurator dot get configuration setting system log file path and name. So now we're actually pulling that log file path and name there, adding it in, and console.log log file after adding the log file name. Okay, so I'll pause here and I'll show you what's going on. Log file. There we go. Okay. So what it's doing first is it's getting a root path from the application config root path. So it's pulling the root path there. Then we've got that, and now it's appending this logs to it, and then it's getting this file name and adding that in as well. So by the time we get to here, down at the very end, we should have a full system path and file name. So this should be a complete file name and path to where that file is going to be saved. And it should be unique, because I believe when we set this further upstream somewhere, this thing should have gotten set to a unique timestamp relative to when the application started running. So that should be completely unique. All right, let's get into the rest of this code. We're going to say let debug function setting equal false. Let debug file setting equal false. Okay. Let debug setting equal false. And let output message equals an empty string. We might not use that one. Let configuration name equal empty string. And let configuration namespace, namespace equal empty string. Okay. All right, we got a few more console logs and some more code. All right, console.log, open single quote, determine if there is a configuration setting for the class path. Okay. Let's see here. It looks like your screen is frozen. I see Zarco's keeping up. That's good. Let me come back to L. Okay. Looks like your screen is frozen, L, but we'll pause here in a minute. All right, so we got the class path. Configuration name equals configurator. Oops. Configurator. Dot process configuration name rules, or is it namespace rules? No, configuration name rules. Yeah, there you go. We're going to pass it the class path. All right, we're going to talk about what this is doing here in a minute because it's pretty cool. Console.log. This is configuration name is $ curly brace configuration name. There should be a curly brace there. And I think this needs to be a backtick. There we go. Okay. Yep. Good. All right. Next, configuration namespace equals configurator dot process configuration namespace rules. Okay. We're going to pass it again the class path. We'll talk about what this is doing here in a minute because we're beginning to see the system. This is the system that's going to enable us to enable or disable logs at the function level. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's really, really cool. Okay, that's configuration namespace, console.log, backtick, configuration namespace is $ curly brace configuration namespace. Okay. All right. And debug function setting equals configurator dot get configuration setting. Again, typical. But this time, let's see here. This is debug function setting. Yeah, we're going to set it to debug settings dot $ curly brace configuration namespace. This is when it gets really, really neat. All right. Dot, oh, sorry, comma, configuration name. Okay. All right. This is because we're parameterizing here. This is really cool. All right. Console.log, backtick, debug function setting is $ curly brace debug function setting. Okay, did we get that right? Yes. Debug file setting equals configurator dot get configuration setting backtick debug settings dot $ curly brace configurator namespace, and then this one has a comma and then empty string. Okay, and then we say console.log backtick debug file setting is $ curly brace debug file setting. Okay, so what this is doing is it's pulling, it's taking the configuration name and this class path, it's breaking this class path down, and this is breaking the class path down to get the configuration name and the configuration namespace. And from the configuration namespace, we're able to further break it down by configuration name and or the file setting, which is an empty string in this case, because it figures out that the setting should be an empty string. If it's an empty string, then it's the file setting. If it has this extra decorator string, which is the configuration name, then it's the function setting. So this allows us to enable or disable logs for an entire file. So maybe like, let's just go for an example in chief data. All right. Well, we got one function there. Let's go to warden maybe. Warden only has two functions. Yeah. Let's try data broker. Okay. Data broker has a few functions. Is that enough? 3 functions? No, let's try, no, rule broker. Let's go string parsing. String parsing has a lot of functions, right? We got a lot of functions in string parsing. Okay. So what this lets me do in this logger is it lets me enable all of the functions in the entire string parsing file to participate in the logging all at once, just by changing one flag. Okay. But it also lets me drill down and enable or disable individual functions from this function setting. Okay. So I can enable a single function, or maybe it's 3 functions out of 50, right? Maybe the file is huge and it has 50 or 100 functions in there, and I just want to look at 3 of them. Okay. This will let me turn on those 3 individual functions for logging. Okay, but it also lets me do it at the file level. So I can do, you got a lot of files here. You got data broker, rule broker, array parsing, string parsing, rules library, which doesn't really do much. You got the chief configurator, chief data, warden, configurator, which we're not going to be able to do much with the configurator. You got file operations, you got timer.js, right? There's data.js, which you're not going to be able to do much with that. But you can enable maybe 3 of these files to do logging. So all of the functions in those 3 files will log in the console log. So I just turn on the flags for those 3 files, and bingo, I've got logs from all the functions in those 3 files. So that allows me to look at high-level code and debug high-level. But then it also lets me flip the flags and then enable individual functions so I can do low-level logging, right? And I'm doing that with the same system, the same configuration system. And later on, you're going to see that once we have that capability, then we can level it up even further, and we can build in macros and additional automation to enable or disable individual functions and files using a script at runtime. Okay, and when we start to do that, then you're starting to build in automation where an AI agent could take over your app and do the debugging for you. And I'm not talking like hallucination ChatGPT debugging. I'm talking about real debugging. Right? So this is incredibly powerful, but we're just building a very basic system. Like, we're not even getting into it. And furthermore, then I can take this system, we're going to build this system out. But once I build the advanced parts of this system, then I can further take this and refactor it into a schema. So I can make a schema data-driven logging system, right? And then we're talking even more power, okay? Even more control. And we can go even more than that, right? There's a whole lot of stuff. We could actually build in transmission logs. So you could transmit this data to a remote server for remote debugging using WebSockets, right? So, I mean, we're talking incredibly powerful stuff, but we've got to start with the basics, because we had nothing. Like when I just started this lesson, we had this template, we had the header and a few lines of code, and that's it, right? We can't do anything with that, right? So we've got to keep going. but now you have an idea about what kind of capabilities this is going to unlock. So let's keep going. All right. So if debug function setting or debug file setting, okay, because we're doing an or there. So if either one of those settings is enabled, then we want debug setting equal true. Okay, so that enables the debugging for whatever function is calling this console log. Okay, so we say console.log debug setting is, oops, this needs to be backtick, I'm sorry. Okay, $ curly brace, oops, we need another backtick right there. Okay, debug setting. Okay, so that's what's going to tell us if we are debugging or printing the log to the console or not. That tells us that setting. Okay, console.log and oops, is that a backtick? No. Done attempting, oops, to get the configuration setting for the class path, comma, now check if it is not undefined and true. Okay. If log file not, oops, not equal to undefined and log file dot to uppercase dot includes log. Now I know, see, everything we're doing here is still like super hacky, and I get that, and that's okay. This code is gonna get way cleaner once we start to get some of these tooling in place. Dot to uppercase dot includes txt. This is all okay. So if those conditions are true, then console log process debug setting log file class path message and true. Okay. Else, and like I said, again, I know this is really ugly, this console log process. Like, you typically don't pass flags as variables. I understand that. I know this looks like a magic variable. We're just hacking it. Like, that's what this is. Later on, you'll see there's certain parts of this that are really going to get a lot cleaner. We're just getting very basics in place right now. Console log process debug setting undefined and class path message and false. Okay, so in the case that we have a log file defined and it's either a log file or a text file that's defined for the log, for the actual log file, then it's going to pass true, which is going to log it to the file. Otherwise, it's going to pass false, and it's not going to log it to the file. It's just going to log it to the console output, which, if you're dealing with really complicated functions that are logging a lot, it'll overrun the buffer in your console log. All right, so in that case, you're not going to see what you're not going to be able to see what you want to do for debugging. For really advanced debugging, you really need to have that log file set up properly and running and working. All right, one last console.log backtick end $ curly brace namespace prefix $ curly brace function name function. Okay. All right. So that's the end of that console log function. And I'm going to pause here and let's check. Okay. All right. So for the next function, we got to do this console log process. So function console log process. And yeah, again, I know the signature is really ugly, but that's, again, we're just hacking it right now. Debug setting log file class path message and logging to file and console. Okay. All right, we're going to do the header first. Always do the header first. Okay. At function is console log process, and description says a function that will print a message to a log file and the console, or just the console. The output depends on if there was a text log file specified or not. Okay, this is a Boolean. Debug setting is Boolean, a true or false value to indicate if the log action is enabled or not. Okay, this one is a string. Log file is the path to the log file where the message should be logged. It's kind of an important one. Class path is also a string, and that is defined as the class path for the caller of this function, file.function, or class.method. Now, technically, we don't use classes, but it's the idea, right? Okay. This one is string message. The message or data contents that should be dumped to the output log file and or console. The last one, this one is also a Boolean. Okay, logging to file and console is a true or false value to indicate if the log should be done to the specified log file and the console. If no log file is specified by the caller settings system, then this will be false, and only the console will be logged. Okay, at return is void, and at author put your name. I'm putting my name, you put your name. You take ownership for your code. We talked about that in previous sessions. Date 2026. Today is 01/27. Okay. Now let function name equal console log process dot name, and console.log backtick begin $, curly brace, namespace prefix, $, curly brace, function name. I promise there's so much better way of doing this, and you're going to love it when we actually get it. Function name. Well, we may not get much of that here because this has to remain hard-coded. Console.log, and we're going to log out all of these variables that we passed into this function. Debug setting is $, curly brace, debug setting, console.log backtick debug setting log file is $, curly brace, log file, console.log, oops, backtick, this was, yeah, log file, this is class path, And we try to do everything in the same order that we passed it in, just for clarity's sake. Class path, it removes one last piece of confusion, or point of possible confusion. Console.log, backtick message is $ curly brace message. Okay, console.log, backtick logging to file and console is $ curly brace logging to file and console. Okay, let output message equal empty string, and let message is valid equals false. Okay, we're going to use those in a minute because there's a process. That's why we call this console log process, because there's a process to this logging. We can't just go straight into it. We need to go through all of this. So if debug setting not equal to undefined and debug setting equals true, console.log, this can be a single quote. The debug setting is not undefined and also true. Okay, so we're just declaring the state of the if condition, because otherwise you're going to run this and you're not going to even know what's being logged. Why are we doing this, and why is it doing that, or why is it behaving this way, or why is it not behaving that way? Right? We be very explicit and deterministic in our logs. That way we can build an execution trace map of what executes when this function actually gets called. Okay, output message equals parse class path, log file, class path, and message. Okay, you'll see that why we're gonna do that in a minute. Console.log, that's another function that we're gonna actually go implement. Console.log, backtick, output message is $ curly brace output message. Okay, console.log, oops, okay, message is $ curly brace message. Message is valid equals valid message. That's another function we're going to implement. Okay, output message. So yeah, I know we're going to implement these. We haven't implemented them yet, but we will. But this is all part of the process. Like, this is the mid-level orchestrator of this console logging process. You could think of it like that. Okay, if message is valid equals true. Okay, and all right, I'm going to put a to-do here because we do need to get back to this. Add rule here to replace double percentage with message class path. Okay, that's something we got to do. We're not, and we will. Console.log, output message, and we're just dumping the message out right there, hard-coded, just dump it. If message is valid equals true, and logging to file and console equals true, then we print message to file, which is another function that we have to write. Log file and output message. Console.log, and this can be a single quote, done printing the message to the log file. Oops, should be one word. Okay, there we go. Oops, now this, we need to jump down here to the else. So else if configurator dot get configuration setting system and debug test exhaustive equals true. Okay, now debug exhaustive is a configuration setting that basically turns on all logs all the time. So everything will log. And that's usually too much. Like in this system, it's a lot. It's way, way too much. But I put it in here anyways because there have been times when I needed it, as messy as it is. Console.log. Okay, this can be a single quote. Else block the debug test exhaustive setting is true. Okay, we want to definitely log that because this can be really messy. This block of code, if it gets hit, then it can be really, really, really messy. So we want to make sure that we identify that. To do, add rule here to replace double % with message class path. Debug exhaustive. Okay, so this is the note. Exhaustive is probably not the best. We might want to consider configuration setting to enable or disable the console specifically. Right now, there is no real business need for it. Yeah, I was building this early on, and of course when you're early on, this does make sense. Later on, or pretty quick, this doesn't make sense, but right now it does, so we're going to leave it in here. If you really wanted to disable it, just comment it out here. Okay, console.log output message, and we're just hard coding it out right now. If logging to file and console equals true, oops, not this, true, print message to file, which we haven't implemented, but we will, log file and output message. Okay, and we're going to do another console here, console.log, done printing the message to the log file. Okay, and then after those, we come to here, console.log, past all the if else blocks of code. Yeah, that doesn't really tell you a whole lot, does it? But I mean, it might. I mean, if you're in the code, again, this is all super hackish, right? So we're just building out the early version of this thing. Backtick end, $ curly brace, namespace prefix, $ curly brace, function name, function. Okay. There we go. Okay, so that's one function, or two functions down. We've got 1, 2, 3 left. All right, and they're shorter-ish. Okay, good. Keeping up, Zarko. That's good. L, hopefully you can try to keep up with our functions as we build them. All right, let's keep going. Function parse class path, log file class path and message. Oops, I need to uppercase P. Camel case. Let's keep that camel case going. All right. Okay, we always do the header first. Header is at function parse class path. At description says parses the class path and message, pulling it apart for logging and looking at custom debug settings. Okay, log file is of course a string, and we define that as the file name and path to the log file where the data should be printed. Okay, and then we got the class path, which is also a string. Class path is the class path for the caller of this function, file.function or class.method. Again, that's the same as what we had before. So, all right, so this one is again a string. Now, in this case, it says message and it's a string, but it could also be a JSON string or something like that, right? It could contain data, but it should be a string. The message or data contents that should be dumped to the output. Okay. And then we've got the return at return string returns the message that should be printed out to the console and logged to the log file. My name, again, at author, put your name, take ownership, it's your code, at date 2026-01-27. Okay, all right, let's get into the function. Wait, hold on. Oh, that's parse class path. Did I get that right? Log file, class path, message. Yeah, okay. We forgot the other one. There's one supposed to be ahead of this. We'll just leave this. We can come back to that. That's fine. It's good the way it is. Let's continue on above it, and we're going to do the one that I forgot, which was function valid message. Output message and original message. Okay, we'll do the header for that one. Sorry to get confused here, but just go above and write another function up there. At function valid message. Okay, at description looks at the parsed processed output message and the original message. Next paragraph, next line, to determine if the message is a valid message to dump to the console and or the log file if specified in parentheses. Okay. All right. Now this one is a string, but it could also be an integer. Or, so I'm putting pipes, string, pipe, integer, pipe, Boolean, pipe, object, right? Because it could be just JSON data. This is the message that has been parsed, processed. And actually, we probably should do that on the other ones, but whatever. I mean, yeah, either way, it doesn't matter, I guess. And the output should be a string, pipe, integer, pipe, Boolean, pipe, object. Okay, original message. The original message passed in before processing, parsing. Oops, parsing. Spell right. Come on, dummy. All right. At return, Boolean. a true or false to indicate if the output message should be dumped to the log file and or the console. Okay, my name at author, you put your name and date, 2020, oops, at date 2026/01/27. I always put the date for the year first, and then the month, and then the day. It's kind of a European standard because if you cut out the forward slashes, then you get a unique timestamp that is for, like if you're in a file, then that is a sortable file because the year is first, and then the month, and then the day. So it's kind of backwards from American standards, but I prefer that. Like this is better. It sorts better in file names, you know, whatever. It works out so much better. Okay. Okay, here we go. Valid message. Let function name equal valid message dot name and console.log backtick begin curly brace $ curly brace namespace prefix, okay, $ curly brace function name function console.log, oops, okay, backtick output message is $ curly brace output message, console.log original message is $ curly brace original message. Okay, let return data equal false. Down 2 lines, we're going to add this comment. This first if condition catches the case that the output message has already been parsed and modified according to the class path. If output message not equal to false and output message not equal to original message, return data equals true. Else if output message not equal to false and output message dot includes, all right, this is cool, %%, which is why we had that to do before, to make it simpler how we do this, equals false. Okay, so if that's the case, then we say this else if condition catches the case that the caller just wants to dump a generic message. Okay. That doesn't have a class path designation. Return data equals true. Okay, and then here we end the function. Console.log, open parenthesis, backtick, return data is $, curly brace, return data. Console.log, backtick, end, $ curly brace, namespace prefix, and then another $ curly brace, function name, and then function. And finally, return data. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's good. See, you're staying caught up there. That's good. And now we're ready to go down to this parse class path function. So, yeah, make sure you leave one space between functions, just one space only. We don't need any more than that. You don't want to have less than that. Okay, let's continue on with this. Let function name equal parse class path dot name. And of course, we log everything as before. Console.log backtick begin $ curly brace namespace prefix $ curly brace function name function. Yep, I know you're doing it fast. That's okay. I like to do the long way. Console.log backtick log file is curly brace log file. Okay. Console.log backtick class path is $ curly brace class path, and console.log message is $ curly brace message. Okay. Next, let class name equal empty string. Okay. Let class function name equal empty string. Let debug function setting equal false. And let debug file setting equal false. Let class path array equal. Now, I don't think we're going to use that one. Class path array we might not use. Let return data equals an empty string. Okay. Class name equals debug settings dot $ curly brace. This is backticks now. Configurator dot process configuration namespace rules, and we're going to pass the class path to that. Okay, so it's a little bit of a nested call there, kind of tricky. Console.log class name is $ curly brace class name. Class function name equals configurator dot process configuration name rules. Yep, that's it. Class path. So we're doing the same thing we did before. Yes, I know we have to do it again. That's one of the tricky parts. Console.log class function name is $ curly brace class function name. Okay, now we need to make some calls to print the message to the file. We're going to do this. These are debugs, but they're hard-coded debugs because we need to be able to do this to log files for extra special debugging. Because when we get into here, things can get really messy. So print message to file, log file, and then this is a backtick, getting configuration setting value for debug functions. What is that? Is that a pipe? It is a pipe. Pipe $ curly brace class name dot $ curly brace class function name. Okay. And then we do the same message as a console log. Okay. Oops. Console.log. And here I am going to copy paste. We can just drop that right in there. Okay. Debug function setting equals configurator dot get configuration setting class name class function name. Okay. Zarko, you still there? Okay, hold on just a second. Okay, guys, let's continue on. So here we go. Debug function setting, and then we're going to say print message to file again, log file, and backtick debug, debug functions setting is $ curly brace debug function setting. Oops, that should be function, not functions. Oh, I made it worse. I added another S. Function setting. Okay. And did I get that right? Debug function setting is. Wait. Yeah, print message. There you go. Okay, and then console.log. This is the same thing. Okay, I can just copy paste that, dump it right there. Okay. And then we've got debug file. Is it files setting? Yes. Setting equals configurator. Configurator dot get configuration setting class name and empty string. Okay, print message to file again, backtick. Oh, wait, before we do that, this is log file. We have to pass the log file. Then we say backtick debug files setting is $ curly brace debug files setting. Okay, and then console.log again. We're going to log the same thing, but this time again we're going to do the same thing we did up here. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, some of the logic. If debug function setting or debug file setting oops, we got this files. This is a typo in my original code. It should be file setting. I keep making that same mistake over. Okay, file setting. Now here's the if logic. To do, implement the colorizing. This is neat. Of the message here. We are going to colorize our messages at some point, I believe. Return data equals message. Okay, else if debug function setting equals 3 equals undefined. Notice I put this inside a nested. I put that inside a double parentheses there. See that? Okay. Because we've got some complex logic that's going to have to go right here. So if that is equal to undefined and debug file setting equals undefined, or, oops, okay, inside, after the first one, then we loop back around. And I want to double check this. Ah, I missed that one. Okay. All right. I think I got them all now. Debug function setting. Yeah, I think I got all of those as well. Okay. This needs to go there. And then we go here and we say another open parenthesis, debug function setting equals undefined, and debug file setting equals false. Or, okay, we're going to keep doing this. Open parenthesis, debug function setting equals false, and debug file setting equals undefined. Okay, over again like that. Another or. Debug function setting equals false, and debug file setting equals false. Okay, now we can finally wrap that up, and here we go to the logic. Okay, console.log, something is undefined and false, or some combination of both. Return false. Okay, so we've caught as many different possible combinations of cases there. And it still shows as being outlined in red here. I think, oops, I see what it is. This was a curly brace. That needs to be a parenthesis. Same here. This needs to be a parenthesis. Make sure we get that right. That should clear up the IntelliSense if I have a space there. And I need to get rid of another curly brace. Okay, there we go. Now it's cleaned up. Okay. Return data equals false. There we go. Now this is an else here. Else to do. Implement the colorizing of the message here. Return data equals message. Okay, good. And now we're going to wrap up the function with the console logs at the end. So console.log, backtick, return data is $ curly brace, return data. Return. Oops, we don't need a return there. Just here. Okay. And then we say console.log, parentheses, backtick, and $ curly brace, namespace prefix. Outside of that, another $ curly brace, function name, and function. Return data, oops, no, return data. There we go. Okay, so that's the end of that function. Perfect. Let's keep going. All right, I think we're down to the last function. Yeah, last one. Function print message to file message, and header. As always, do the header first. At function print message to file at description prints a message to a log or text file. All right, now the parameters. This one is a string. The file path and file name where message data should be printed. And this one is also a string. The message that should be logged to the log file if the specified flag is true. Okay, at return, void, at author, put your name, and at date 2026-01-27. Okay. Let function name equal print message to file dot name. Okay. Console.log backtick begin $ curly brace namespace prefix and then $ curly brace function name function. Okay, console.log backtick file is $file console.log backtick message is $message. Okay, let data time stamp. Oops, I can't spell for some reason. Time stamp equal empty string. And then we say if not file dot includes undefined. Then we continue on console.log. We got to put these console logs in because this whole system is brand new, and we're going to need to make sure that it works. Oh, this is a backtick? No, yeah, this is a single quote, not a backtick. Not file dot includes undefined. Okay, we're just clarifying that. If configurator dot get configuration setting system log file enabled equals true, console.log log file enabled equals true. If message to do, okay, little comment here. Once the colorizer is set up, remove the colorizer font styles from the string. Yeah, we're going to have to do that because the colorizer will add these international color standards to the ASCII code message. They're hidden if you console log them, but if you dump them to an ASCII file, then they show up. So we do need to have that to be able to remove it. If configurator dot get configuration setting system includes, is that include? No, include. Oops, I need a string. This needs to be a string. Include date time stamp in log files. There's a setting for that. Equals true. Then individual, did I spell that right? I'm probably in my typing. And dividdual messages need to have a time stamp on them. So let's sign the message with a time stamp. Okay, timestamps are useful for messages because then you can evaluate what happened in what order if things get out of order for whatever reason. Date, time, stamp. Maybe you're dealing with asynchronous operations or asynchronous promises. There's all kinds of reasons why things could get out of whack. Timers.getNow moment. And we're going to pass it a hard-coded string for right now. Year, 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 month, month, day, day, underscore, HH, lowercase mm, SS, uppercase SSS for seconds, milliseconds. Okay. And then console.log backtick date time stamp is $ curly brace date time stamp. Okay, message equals backtick $ curly brace date time stamp colon and then $ curly brace message. So we're reformatting that message to include the timestamp. And file operations dot append message to file, which we implemented, file and message. Okay. Else console.log single quote error colon all caps failure to log to file colon space plus file. Okay, now that's the end of that one. Now we come down here, there's another else. Console.log, we need to make sure we log on all the else conditions. Error, oops, single quote, error, log, file, includes undefined, period. Okay, and then one final console log at the very end, console.log, backtick, and $ curly brace, namespace prefix, and then $ curly brace function name function. See a pattern. We're always putting that at the end of every function. All right. So that's the end of our log. It's pretty cool. That should be it. I think that's it. Is there anything else I'm missing? Oh yeah, well there's a few other odds and ends. Let's see here. Babel RC file, an ignore file. There's a test. What was the test? Test has resources, test harness. Was there anything in the test harness? What's that? Let's make sure we didn't miss anything. Main, okay, that looks good. Bootstrap application and the application itself. Yeah, I think this was, yeah, that's that. The git ignore. Is there anything we're missing there? Oh yeah, well, yeah, we could change this up a little bit. So we probably want to add star dot capital log and star dot all caps log, and we definitely want to add star dot html lowercase and star dot html all uppercase. Yeah, we want to get those in there. And another one we want to add here after node modules is star / documentation and star / documentation /star. Okay, we're just adding a few of those into the git ignore because later on we are going to be doing stuff there. We can put a changelog file in here. Probably want to have that. JSdoc.json file. We should probably get that in there. We got our package lock, package.json. There's a readme. We're missing the readme. Okay, let's add in some of these. So let's get a changelog. We'll just add the file. We're going to keep it empty for now. Oops. I want to add it right here. New file. Okay, well, all caps change log.md. Okay, perfect. And then just put hashtag change log, just like that. Press enter twice and save it. We'll figure out the rest of that later. We just need to get the file in there. And then we need to add a jsdoc.json file. So we're going to add that as well. new file, jsdoc.json. Okay, and I'm just gonna, well, we can put this in here. Okay, so it's got one high-level bracket, then a source, colon, curly brace, include, and src, comma, and include pattern dot JS $. Okay, did I get that right? Yeah, my eyes aren't what they used to be. And exclude pattern. Oops. Okay, colon. Curly brace. Oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, quote and then curly brace. Node modules / pipe documentation. End curly brace. Okay, and comma, plugins. Okay, square bracket. That is in quotes, plugins, markdown, comma, templates, colon, curly brace, clever links, true, comma, monospace, links, also true. Okay, comma, down, options, and we got recurse, true, destination, dot / src / resources documentation. Why did it go to capital D? It should not be a capital D. Okay, I don't think so. And template. At least I don't think it's supposed to be capital D. Okay. Dot / node modules / JS doc / templates / default, comma, readme dot / readme.md. Okay, so we're going to add that, all caps readme, and then dot lowercase md. Okay, I think we got that. Let me save that. I'll let you get caught up with that one. That shouldn't be too hard, and that should be fairly standard to JS docs, I believe. And I think that's the last of what we have to do here. Okay, and we do need to have the README. I forgot about that. So let's get the README file in there. And new file, readme.md, all caps. And all we need to do is do a hashtag, hey space, haystacks. Okay. We're going to get back to that. Like, we don't really need to do that right now. I mean, this, or calc framework. You could put calc framework in here if you want. Calc framework. Okay. All right. Now, I'm running Linux. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. It's been ls cd ls cd ls cd code ls. This is calc framework. cd proj ls cd calc framework. Oops. Calc framework. And how do we run this? What was my package.json command to run it? I guess we just run npm start. Will that work? Path is not defined. Huh. I must have something not set up. Oh, wait a minute here. No, I've got a problem. String parsing, there's a bug in my code. String parsing, line number 27. Okay, string parsing, line number 27. That doesn't seem right. What did that say? Path.base file name. Oh, that's got to be near the top. Path.base file name. Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, this is string parsing. Let's go check that out. Clearly, I did something that hasn't been fixed. String parsing. Oh, yeah, we're missing some stuff. Okay, we got the D, we need path. Let path equal require path. Okay. Although I think we should be using import statements, but let's try it. Connie's light is outdated. Please run. Why you should do it regularly. Okay, so something must be up with npx on my system. That's got to be a my system thing, probably not a you thing. npx is not found. All right, let's try npx. I thought I installed npx. Sure. It shouldn't matter. But I guess Linux. Okay. Let's try this again. Is it going to work? Well, it didn't crash. So something's working right. Okay, that's good. We got it to sort of run. I mean, it didn't crash. That's the important part. All right, let's look at you. What do you got? Oh, can't find module, array parsing. So we can go back. I can double check with you. Rules parsing, so you got something up there. Is there something you're missing? Doesn't look like it. Okay, doesn't. Is it a typo? Maybe uppercase? And then array parsing. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. Yeah, see, controllers.rules. You need to have that there at the very top. Go all the way up to the top. Yep, controllers.rules. So you do need to have that there in their namespace. Business rules.rules. Yeah, there you go. I don't know why it reformats that. I guess that's your prettify. I would suggest disabling that prettify where it makes it into multiple lines. Because it just adds more scrolling that you don't need. Like your prettify did, yeah, there you go. You want to probably disable that setting. All right, what was your thing? Couldn't find module. Go back down. I'm going to pause the recording because now we're getting into debug. Yeah, we'll do that again. All right, so yay, no errors. You, me, we both, no errors. That's the important thing. It didn't do anything, but it didn't error out. And all of this work, and we didn't actually do anything in the actual application yet. But we've got the code. We've started building an actual framework. So let's see, what are we doing next time? I'd have to go look. But I think if I just bring up my repo, which, let me just go look at my GitHub. Let me just try to, pardon me, try to find my GitHub. Okay, repositories, and I gotta go find my old repo, which is the Haystacks deprecated, which has the training modules. There it is. Okay. So what I really need to do is look at the training. I think it's training 2. Yeah, I'd have to pull this code and actually do a diff and find out what changed. But we're going to get into it. Yeah. So let's call that quits for tonight, at least for the recording. And we're going to resume Haystacks, the calc framework rebuild, starting with the next season. Next season, I believe, most likely, I think what we're probably going to be doing is, let me just start with main.js or test harness. And test harness or even main. Let me just go to main.js. You can notice here, we had all of these console logs. So just real quick, go to main.js and just take a look there in your main.js. Yep. Okay. See, scroll down. Yeah, you see you got these commented out console log, begin, console log this. So those are hard-coded console logs. And instead of doing that, from now on, we're going to be calling our own console logger with the function we just wrote today. So we got to make that change so that we're calling our own logger, and we're going to add in a set of resource data to actually manage the console logging. And that's where it's going to start to get real. So we're going to start to implement some of these systems that we've actually built or started to build. And we're going to start to flesh things out, and this whole framework is going to start to mature. So expect to see that in the next season as we start the next training session. Okay, let's call that quits. I'm going to stop the recording. So take care. I'll see you guys again next time.